drive down Peoria from the north to south or south to north, you drastically see the difference in life, especially once you cross the train tracks. It's a literal divide, but it starts to get a little better, a little worse.
Alan Collins was born and raised in North Tulsa and still lives there to this day.
I've seen gang fights next door to me. My cousin was killed around the street from me due to a setup from former gang violence, and he had disaffiliated at that point, but it didn't matter.
But it's not just North Tulsa that struggles with gang activity. Tulsa Police Sergeant Brian Hill is with the Special Investigations Division. He tells VNN north, south, east, and west, gangs are networking all throughout Tulsa. There are 8 main gangs operating within city limits. With the black gangs, it's the Hoover Crips, the Neighborhood Crips, and the Bloods. You have the Hispanic gangs, Sereno, Cerritos, and Florencia, and you also have the white gangs, the Aryan Brotherhood, a prison gang, and the Irish Mob Gang, who are typically more prevalent in West Tulsa. Hill estimates there are roughly 3,200 to 3,500 people connected to Tulsa gangs, slightly less than the national average of 1% of the population. That includes associates like family members or girlfriends, not just actual members. Tulsa police have conducted 2 recent operations in East Tulsa and operations in South Tulsa as well, but with the highest concentration of gang-related crime in North Tulsa, that is where you'll also find the greatest police presence.
There are plenty of people that have lived up there their whole lives, lived up in North Tulsa where we're at right now, that have had 0 problems their entire lives. We certainly want people to be diligent, but at the same time, it's not like that you have to live in fear of every waking moment. I mean, it's just isolated pockets of violence.
Hill attributes most of the shootings to the drug trade.
Very few random acts. It revolves around money, guns, and drugs.
Innocents caught in the crossfire are typically those related to gang members.
I'd probably speak for all police officers, but specifically the gang unit, that, I mean, even though any loss of human life is obviously tragic, when there are innocents involved, especially children, and I read the same reports that you do as far as the debriefs, and see these children, I mean, literally crawling on their hands and knees trying to get away from gunfire in their homes, and they have no idea what's going on, that's why we're out here.
When that's your earliest childhood memory, Collins says, it's not surprising that many of those children grow up to join a gang themselves. Collins says his earliest memory of gang activity is when he was in the 4th grade, in which a fellow student who had been held back often spoke of being the neighborhood Crip.
His father was in the gang, and he was going to be in the gang, and his friends were in the gang, and they raised him up as an apprenticeship.
Collins tells VNN a strong family is what prevented him from being enticed into Tulsa's gang system.
I came from a 2-parent household. I have 4 older sisters, 3 of them lived with me.
Collins says he knows he is the exception, recalling working at a nonprofit with children who didn't understand how that could be.
Remember probably for a lifetime was a kid asking me what gang I was in as I was in his classroom, and I told him I wasn't in one. He was like, which one were you in? I told him I was never in one. He just looked at me like he was so puzzled because that was the only reality he knew. A lot of my friends growing up when I went to school at Carver and Booker T were in gangs. With my experience playing youth sports, I got to see the quote-unquote other side of town, playing a lot of kids from South Tulsa, East Tulsa. I knew just based off of how our team makeup was and the other teams' makeup were that something was different. And I knew that we were more economically disadvantaged, but I didn't know why.
Collins says he made it a personal quest to find out why that was, leading to the discovery of discriminatory housing policies, land valuation, and a lack of certain public and private development, resulting in the gentrification of North Tulsa.
Things were done and have happened to ensure that North Tulsa is not as thriving as the rest of the city.
Merriam-Webster defines gentrification as the process of repairing and rebuilding homes and businesses in a deteriorating area, such as an urban neighborhood, accompanied by an influx of middle-class or affluent people, and that often results in the displacement of earlier, usually poorer residents. It's something Collins says has been going on in Tulsa long before he was born, dating back to days following the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, in which nearly 200 black-owned businesses were burned to the ground. An estimated 300 black people were killed. 10,000 were left homeless. After the massacre, Black Wall Street was built up even bigger than before, but was plagued by urban redevelopment and new highway development. Now there are less than 24 Black-owned businesses. More recently, according to Governing Magazine, gentrification in Tulsa has increased over the last 2 decades, with these highlighted areas moving from the bottom 40th percentile of household income and home value to the top 3rd percentile in home value and percentage of adults with bachelor's degrees.
I think they want it to die a little bit so people leave.
Collins believes this pattern of pushing poor people out to build for wealthier newcomers has led to an increase in crime in poverty-stricken areas, resulting in a stigma he says has led to the dehumanization of not only gang members in North Tulsa, but the community as a whole.
Talking about the people as if they were not human, or making jokes about the crime and the shootings. I've heard people tell me that, or don't go over there. I know you live there, but still, like, but you're not like you're not like a real black person. Like, you're not like actual black. I'm like, what? I live in the thick of it. I grew up right around it. I still live there.
We're doing what we can as far as the enforcement and then trying to develop relationships and then trying to, from that angle. But at the same time, this is going to take a much bigger buy-in from the community to do things in order for us to make everlasting change.
Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
Hill says they are working around the clock, conducting special ops, like the recently completed Operation Muster that resulted in 25 felony arrests, 9 guns seized, and 19 felony warrants served.
And I'm not talking about people that are dealing small bags of marijuana on the street corner. We're talking about people that are causing chaos in our city, that are going and indiscriminately shooting or shooting because they have no fear of repercussion. Those are the people that we go after.
There are a lot of good, damaged people in the gang. They didn't have a father, they didn't have a mother, they saw someone killed, they wanted to get revenge. A lot of the people I see and that I've known that are in gangs are very talented athletically, musically, even mathematically, poetry, the arts, all those kind of things, but they didn't feel they had support. They didn't think anyone cared.